Hello, and thank you for taking time out of your busy schedule to dive into the world of what's possible with Microsoft Dynamics 365 customer service. I'm Chad Collette, the Director of Marketing here at Ledu Partners. For those not familiar with Ledu, we're a business and technology consulting company that partners with organizations to transform your sales, your marketing, and your customer service operations and processes that are supported by the core technologies, including CRM solutions like Microsoft Dynamics 365, of which we're a long-standing Microsoft Gold partner, and recently announced that for the second year in a row, we were awarded the Inner Circle Award for Business Applications from Microsoft, something we're very honored to be a part of. Now, when a lot of people think about CRM, they immediately turn their focus to sales or marketing. Customer service is often left out of the mix. However, as you'll see today, taking advantage of the customer service capabilities that Dynamics 365 has to offer will not only drive efficiencies with the solution aligned with your entire organization, but it will definitely provide amazing opportunities for you to provide the best customer experience possible. Now, I don't want to spoil too much of what you're about to see. And before I introduce our presenter today, I have just a couple of those housekeeping items that I need to cover. Now, first, today's webinar is been recorded and will be available on demand after this session. You're going to receive a follow-up email from me after the webinar is complete with a link to access the presentation. Now, if you haven't already, make sure to add @ledupartners.com to your safe senders list. This is going to ensure that the emails will get to you and not wind up in your clutter, your junk, or your spam. But if they do, please mark us as a safe sender. Now, we encourage you to share this and really any of our resources within your company and also your professional networks. To ensure the best audio quality, everyone is on listen-only mode. But if you have a question or a comment, please submit those in the question pane of your GoToWebinar control panel or in the survey that's going to follow this webinar and demo. We'll make sure we follow up with any questions within 24 hours, so make sure to bring them on. Now that those housekeeping items are out of the way, I want to welcome today's presenter and a Dynamics demo god, Pete Hoffman. Pete's a pre-sales engineer with Ledu Partners. Now, he holds multiple certifications across the Dynamics 365 platform, and he's been working with Dynamics since some of the early days of the solution. And he's really seen firsthand how this solution has evolved tremendously over the years, especially when it comes to how it can just be a true game changer for customer service and that overall customer experience. Pete, thanks for joining us today, and take it away.
Thanks, Chad. Glad to be here. So today what we want to cover is really focusing on that customer service module within Dynamics 365. We will be looking and working within the version 9, wave 2 of Dynamics. But everything that we're going to be covering today really is going to be available both online and on-premise. So regardless of the platform that you're using today, what we're going to be covering today will work for both. So what we want to do is look at really that case management. So I'm going to be focusing on kind of the day in the life of what it is to be a customer service rep, working through that case all the way through until resolution. And then also looking behind the scenes a little bit to understand, what are the email queues? How do we set those up? And auto creation rules, auto case creation rules. What are service level agreements within Dynamics and how do those get set up, along with entitlements, and then looking a little bit at the knowledge base and how can those be useful within the case resolution process. So I really don't want to spend too much time going through anything other than jumping into the tool. So let's take a look and we'll get right into the Dynamics tool itself. So within Dynamics, and especially for a customer service rep, a typical landing place or a place to kind of start your day really is that dashboard. Because as you can see here, everything on this page is filtered down to my active cases. So you can see right along on the right here, I'm really able to quickly see that I have 7 active cases currently available to me. I've resolved 2. You can see the number of activities that I have. I can see cases by priority, by product. It'll actually also count how many cases I have for each of these products. I can see them by incident type or by the case type. And also, where are my cases coming from? Are they coming from the web, emails, phone calls, and then any sort of case resolution trend? So this is just an example of what you could put together as that starting point for any customer service rep to really give them at their fingertips everything they need to begin and to start and to see that overall overall snapshot of kind of where they are today. So as a customer service rep, I come in and I'm seeing that I do have those 7 active cases, but I'm also seeing that I have one that is that high priority. So I probably want to spend my time and start with that. So when I click into this, I can drill down into that one, which then you can see everything on my screen now is filtered. And it's displaying everything related to that one case, which includes on the left side here, that case that I can actually open. So I'm going to go ahead and open up this case. So you can see right away that very quickly I'm able to see where am I in this process, who the customer is, contact information. And as I scroll down, I'm also seeing that they have an SLA with us, and that I do have, and I'm nearing that expiration time for when that service level agreement is set to be, is really set to expire. So what happens behind the scenes then is I have this set up so that when this is nearing expiration, I had an email come out, and I had an email get sent to me that's really telling me to make that initial contact on this case. So typically what happens, that would come into my Outlook mailbox. So if I jump into the Outlook side of things, I'm able to see then quickly that here is that email that came in. And what I wanted to show you today is I'm able to see, I could click the case link here, which would then open up the case on the Dynamics side. But the feature that I wanted to focus on today is really the Dynamics app for Outlook. This app is going to give me the ability to see real quickly that this is the customer. I can see all the different information that I can see on the Dynamics side right from within this app. I can scroll through, and if I compare looking at this one versus the web side, you can see that it's all the same information. It's just formatted a little differently to fit within this side panel. And everything I'm showing you here today is going to be available both on the web version, the desktop client, and the a mobile device if you're using the Outlook app on your mobile device. And this has replaced the older Outlook client that you guys are used to. I should say the Dynamics for Outlook client, the plugin that you maybe been using previously in your time with Dynamics. So again, for today's purpose, I think we're going to jump back into the web app, because as you can see, the layout's a bit more easier to see. So I'm going to keep scrolling down to understand a little bit more about what is going on with this case. I can see the customer, I can see the subject, where this case came from, what the product is, but then I notice that they have premium support with us. So what does that mean? So I can go in and actually click within this record, and let's see what that premium support means. So, a lot of customer service departments within a company can provide and sell different levels of support: premium, standard, basic, and each of those can have different levels or different types of support. In this case, this premium support is offering 50 total terms, which means 50 cases that they can open with the support desk that they've purchased for the year. So I can see the start, I can see the end date. I can actually see, it tells whether this case creation is restricted based on the terms within here. So if they're not meeting the terms within this premium support, we can actually have it prevent the system from creating the case. I can see what the SLA that it's related to. And then, like I mentioned before, I can also see that they have purchased 50. They've used 2, so they have that 48 remaining. But I can take it a step further and say that, okay, well, they have 50 total terms, but only 25 of those can actually come in via phone. I could say that they only have 25 that are available through email or web. But again, it's giving me that control and structure over how and what type of support we are providing our customers. And you can imagine the different variations that you could come up with. And in addition to that, I'm able to say, okay, well, this premium support is only including the following 3 products that we have in the system. So that if the customer comes in and they ask for support for a product outside of this, that would not be covered under this support. And in addition to that, we can say, well, these are the contacts that actually can create cases and request support within the company to, again, limit the type of support or who can actually engage with the support desk, to give the customer actually that control on their end to make sure that only those that have been designated have the ability to reach out for help. So you can see the power of having these entitlements set up, and also the organization that it provides your business. So let's jump back into the actual case itself. And I will jump over to cases. Okay, so as we keep looking through this case, again, keeping in mind, I am a customer service rep. The first thing I notice, I had my timer. I know that I have about 24 minutes remaining that I need to actually reach out to this customer to get this, this case resolution in progress. But then I keep going down. Let's look at the description here. So it says it keeps getting stuck around 75% complete and then stops with an error about the Z switch being stuck. All right, so then I come into my timeline because really, again, my initial reaction is I need to understand what has been done and what still needs to happen in order to keep this case resolution moving. So I see the email that came into me. I also see that the customer actually emailed our support desk and they sent over a picture of the actual error that was happening. So if I can actually, right from here, without having to go anywhere else, I don't have to go into Outlook, I don't have to go into any other system, I'm able to really quickly within this timeline get to that email that was sent from the customer to ultimately open up and look at what that error is. And of course, it went onto my other screen. And I will. So here's that Z switch error that came up that the customer had sent over. So that gives me, anybody who knows anything about hardware or software, it's always going to be helpful to be able to have that firsthand snapshot or picture of the actual error that's coming in from the customer. All right, so I'm still looking through. I also noticed that, and anybody that is used to the old UI before the new UI came into play, the timeline was a little bit different back then. You may have remembered seeing that they had the tabs across the top, the notes, activities, posts, OneNote. The new UI now has everything combined into one list in chronological order to really add that efficiency. So you don't have to be clicking around looking for things. You can see in a very clear list here what's been happening, who's been doing it, and really when it's been happening. So I noticed that there's a post in here from the original owner of this case, who was the administrator, just letting everyone know that there seems to be having a lot of 3D printing issues. We may want to have or send out Alan Steiner to help. And what's interesting is you can also then reply to those. So Alan actually came in, replied to this post and said, yeah, I can do that. And hopefully this will get them past their printing issues. He actually also even liked the post, which is giving that little bit of that social interaction that you may be used to on social media. So this really is a very basic field service scenario. Obviously, there's a whole nother field service module that could be looked at a future date. But this is just basic kind of interaction, internal interaction to help get your field agents out to the customer site to hopefully resolve the issue they're having. So at this point, I'm realizing, all right, so I really need to call the customer and figure out or set up that on-site visit. So I can easily come in here, click the plus sign. I'll go to make a phone call. So I guess the assumption is I've made that phone call, and now this is really just me following up. And I am just going to say that the site visit is recommended. And save and close. Okay. So that's kind of the point at which now is that we've made the that phone call, we've set up the site visit. Another couple other nice features in here is that you can actually come over and both look at recent active cases with this customer, but more importantly, I can come down, and earlier you saw that I opened up the entitlement record on this side here to see the details around what type of support they have. But without having to even open that record, I can come in and really quickly see, okay, they have premium support and they have 48 remaining terms basically for their support. Another nice feature is this knowledge base article area. So a little bit later on this webinar, I'll be showing you how to actually go in and create these knowledge base articles. But for the customer service rep, who's the one who actually needs to utilize them or potentially send them to the customer, it's real quick and easy for them to jump in, and based on their case title that they're putting in on the left here, it's going to automatically search through and filter your knowledge library to find any sort of matching knowledge articles that may either help the customer service rep with assisting the customer or even sending that article to the customer. So these do these typically are customer-facing documents that can be put in, or I should say articles that can be branded, and anything that you would want to be putting into those to make them as beneficial to the customer as possible. So as the rep, I come in and I have a couple options I can do here. I can either link this article to the case itself, which I'll do right now. And what that does is that has been linked to the case itself. So if I go to case relationships, you'll notice now that that case is ready to go. I don't have to search for it anymore. So again, it's allowing that rep to organize themselves, provide the best customer service they can by combining both the internal knowledge that your company has along with the steps being taken in the activities in order to help, again, ultimately get to that resolution of the issue they're having. But they can also take that a step further, and they can actually, like I said, send this article as an email to the customer to give them that information that, again, your business has already pre-approved and gone through the vetting and branding to make it that customer-facing document that you can use. All right, so the last thing I want to show you about the case management itself is, how do we get this timer to stop? So I've done all the things I need to do. And in the situation that we have is we made it very simple. All the customer service rep needs to do is they need to click this first response sent to yes. So once I save this manually, which keep in mind you do have that auto save after every 30 seconds, but I will manually save this record. And then as you'll see here that the SLA now has succeeded. So you can imagine the reporting that you can have that comes out of this to understand how successful is our support team in resolving these cases based on, or I guess meeting the SLA requirements that we have put in place. Okay. So that's really the extent of the case management I wanted to show you. I just want to point out that everything on this page, everything on this form of the case is customizable, or I should say configurable. You can add new fields, you can change field labels, you can change the layouts, you can add additional tabs up here. So don't let what you're seeing today limit your imagination of what you could be putting together that meets more of your business verbiage or terms or branding. So this is just an example of a way of something that you could put together. All right, so let's look a little bit further at knowledge-based articles. So we talked about how the rep can use them, but what I want to show you now is how, as a business, can we be putting together our knowledge-based articles. So I went over to the left here into the navigation, which again, as the new UI shows you, this navigation is on the left-hand side as opposed to the way it was in the old UI where it's all on top, on the very top. So let's just open up one of these that exists, how to support 3D printers. So this has come a long way as far as how much you can do with these articles. Again, the internal process of creating these articles would be, putting together a draft, and then you'd internally would have a process to both create it, review it, and then ultimately publish it, which is what makes it available to your reps and then ultimately to your customers to be able to receive. But you can see down here in the content creator a lot more functionality as far as what you can do. You can do different font styles, formats, text sizes, obviously bolding, colors. But you can put links in here, pictures, tables. You can even bring in embedded media. But even taking that a step further, you can actually get at the back-end HTML. Allowing you to really have full control over what type of knowledge article you want to create. And then an even bigger benefit is that you can actually then preview this. And not only preview it, but you can see, okay, what is this going to look like on a desktop or a tablet or a mobile, even as far as a tablet on landscape or portrait, so that you can really get the ability to understand the customer experience of what the literature is that you'd be sending out. Okay, so now we've kind of talked about the front end of customer service. And again, this is more of a high level representation of what you can do. There's obviously a lot more that can be done or put into this process, but what I'm showing you today is all the configurable things that can be put together. So let's look at the back end a little bit here on what's all behind what the rep is doing. So in the old UI, the customer service management piece was kind of spread out. So we had it in the new UI, but then we also had it in the old settings area. So now in this version 9 Wave 2, everything is within this customer service hub inside of the service management module. So some of the things you can do in here, this is where your queues are. So we'll talk about what queues are in a minute. Your routing rules, automatic record creation, your entitlements, we talked about your holiday schedules, all the different areas within here that are going to give you the ability to configure really the use of this customer service module. But the area that I want to point out today is really around that automatic record creation rules. So the scenario here is that you have a support desk and you have a support desk email address that customers can send email to ultimately get that support. That's really where they send in their support requests. So there's a combination of things going on here with this record creation rule. But the end result is that when the customer sends an email, that email will create the case on the CRM side, putting it into the queue for your customer service reps to pick up and then work through. So it's a combination of both the queue and the actual creation rule that I will walk through here with you. So first, let's look at the queue. So a queue essentially is an email address, right? It's either public or private, like who can actually send emails to this or access this inbox. In this case, we'll do a public inbox. And do we want anything that comes into this inbox, which again, Dynamics is now listening to, because I have set this queue up to be listening constantly to understand what emails are coming in, and then telling the system, do we want those emails to be coming in and created as email activities in the system? So once we have the queue set up and it's listening and it's waiting for and actually bringing in emails into the system, then that in combination with this rule, we have a few things we have to set up in here. So if I go to the advanced tab, so again, the rule itself, what we're looking at here is going to be explaining, or I guess I'll be showing you the different configurations that you can put into here. So I'm going to go to the advanced tab and a couple different conditions that are different, I guess, configurations we want to put in here. So as a part of this rule, do we want to create records for emails from unknown senders? So as a business, you make that decision. Do we want anybody, even though we don't know who that sender is, do we want them to be able to have the system create a case for them, even though they don't exist currently as a contact or a lead, excuse me, or anything in the system that we know of today? So yes or no. Do we want to require a valid entitlement on the connected case? So do they need to have enough terms in order for the case to be created? Do we care about that? Or do we still want that case to be created, which in that situation, then the rep may contact the account manager, who then can reach out to the customer to purchase a support agreement. So again, at least you want that case to get created so you know that there's a need out there. And then a newer piece here is this: wait for a specific amount of time after the connected case has been resolved. So the scenario here is that, let's say a case has been resolved. As far as you guys know, everything is resolved and finished. The customer may email you soon after the resolution of the case saying, you know what, this really isn't fixed, here's another issue. So the old version would say, do we want to include that in a resolved case, or I guess associate that to a resolved case, yes or no? But this new version now took it a step further and says, you know, do we want to wait a specific time? So let's say that we have a window of 3 hours, and maybe I'll change this to 3 hours so that we have a good example here. So do we want to leave that window of 3 hours? So after the case gets resolved, if an email comes in related to that original case, so the same subject line of the email that came in that created the case, or same sender, do we want to wait a 3 hour window so that when that email comes in, if it's in that window, it will still get associated to that original case and not create a new case? Or do we want to say no to this, and no matter what, if that case is closed, this new email or this email that comes in, regardless of whether it was associated to the original case or related to it, this will create a new case and we will start from the beginning? So again, a few different configurations that can be put into these auto creation rules. All right, so then the last thing here, before I get into this, actually I'll jump into it now. So then once we have our configuration completed, then we need to actually create an action that happens. So if I create this, open this create case action, which again, you'd have to create this step. You come in and you can create first the conditions. So all of these conditions I put in here would need to ultimately be true, or they would have to pass the conditions in order for the case to be created. So a couple examples of what types of conditions you may put in here is, let's say that your support inbox gets a decent amount of spam from the same spam@spam.com or something like that is not a legitimate support request. You could put in a condition in here that says, the email address sender or the address of the sender does not equal this domain or does not contain this domain. And if that's true, then it would continue and create the case. So you could think of all sorts of different types of conditions that could be put in to, again, prevent any unnecessary cases from being created so that everything coming in is clean and actually a true support request. So then once the conditions are met, then you actually take the action. What are we doing? We're creating a case. So the old version of this setup was done more or similarly to the way a standard, workflow is created within Dynamics. The new version now is actually taking you to Power Automate. And the nice thing is about these auto creation rules is when I actually click to configure the Power Automate side of this, it does give you that starting point. So I'm not starting from scratch. It's taking me through the different steps that are necessary to create the case. And so for today, if anybody hasn't seen this, we can do a whole nother webinar on flows themselves, or I guess Power Automate they're calling it. But for today, I just want to show you that for the specific purpose of these auto creation rules, all these steps are basically saying, all right, check who the sender is, see do they exist as a contact or an account, and then we actually get to the step where we can create the case, which in this situation, the case, these are all different case fields. You'll notice it's automatically putting in as a case title the subject of the email that initiated this process, who the customer or account is, which is doing a search on the email address of the sender to see if it finds a match. And then you can also add additional things. So a situation that I had with a previous customer was they had 3 different really support inboxes that they had 3 queues set up within Dynamics for. And each queue was for a different type of case. So we created 3 separate auto creation rules, one for each queue, so that when it came in, it automatically set the case type to either a problem, a question, or a request, so that you can default as much of this as you can to really give that customer service rep a good starting point so that they can come in and really start working on and quickly identifying what type of case this is based on the data that we're auto setting here on the creation. So then at the end of this, you would save it, you would close it, and then you would be able to come back, and then now you have your action completed and created. Okay, so if I come back in, the last piece of this auto creation rule that I wanted to point out is, so that's great that the case got created. The customer sent their email in, the system created the case, it assigns the case, it categorizes the case, but then do we want this process also to reply to the sender of the email to let them know we've received your case, yes or no? So in this case, I said yes, and then I'm able to either select an existing template or create a new email template to then make that personalized response back to the customer saying, we received your case, someone will be reaching out from the support team within, I don't know, 4 hours or whatever your SLA is saying that the time limit is. And then you can, again, make that initial automated response back to the customer, all of which is going to be associated to that originating or that case that gets created. So you're going to see all that history in the timeline. All right, so I guess that was kind of the extent of what I wanted to cover today. Just to reiterate that, with the new UI, when you actually go to the different case views in here, all these things are going to be the same. You can still put on inline editing to be able to edit things without having to open the record. Your views are going to remain the same. All the different buttons up here, for the most part, are going to be pretty similar. So then I guess at this point, Chad, I think that's really everything I wanted to cover here today.